So the first booster pack in Pokemon TCG Pocket is Genetic Apex, which actually has 3 different pack arts featuring Pikachu, Charizard, and Mewtwo. And while there are some cards you can pull in all 3 packs, most of the cards are exclusive to one of the 3 packs. So because of this, one of the most common questions people have when starting out the game is, what pack should I open, right? So I wanted to make a quick video just to highlight some of the best cards from each pack, as well as go over a few example builds that topped Ursiiday's recent 1,000 plus player tournament, so you can kind of get a grasp of the general metagame and make a decision that's best for you when it comes for which pack to open. Before getting into the specific cards in the packs, though, I do want to point out a couple things. First of all, if you're just starting your account, I would recommend only opening one single pack type until you get the core cards for one solid playable deck. Even if you're only playing this game for like collection purposes and don't care about PvP whatsoever, I think it's still important to have one deck that's decently strong just so you can use it to carry you through events. Now, I genuinely don't think there's a bad choice between the 3 Genetic Apex packs. Each one contains different cards for at least one powerful meta deck, so if you've already started opening a pack, don't worry, you didn't like make a wrong choice or something. They're all good. And also, this isn't a complete set review, so I'm not going to mention literally every single card in the set. Most of the information presented here is just with a competitive focus in mind for the current format, so I'm mostly going to cover some of the bigger players in the current PvP metagame. First off, we're going to start with the Pikachu pack. Now, if all you care about is building the best deck for the current format, the Pikachu pack is the way to go. At the time of making this video, Lightning-type decks are typically considered the most powerful in the game, mostly due to Pikachu EX, which for only 2 energy does up to 90 damage with a full bench of Lightning Pokemon. So for a basic EX Pokemon, this is extremely fast. Secondary attackers, honestly, it can kind of be any Lightning Pokemon. You can really get by with any, but the most popular ones are Zapdos EX, Raichu, Electrode, and Zebstrika, which is not pictured here because it's a generic card, and I'll touch on it a little later. The main con with this pack, though, is that besides the Lightning deck, there really aren't any other, like, meta viable decks you can build with this pack. Now, this pack does contain Misty, which is worth mentioning, which is a staple for any water type deck. However, the main water line from this pack is Blastoise, which is kind of just outclassed by the water cards from other sets, so it's hard to justify building around. But you can try it if you want to, certainly. I mean, if you just flip heads on Misty, you're going to have a good time, but of course, that's all RNG. For the example deck list for this pack, I'm going to show the Pikachu list here that was piloted by Saitama to win that 1,000-player tournament hosted by Ursiiday this past weekend. So you can see all the cards that were used in that here. Now, next up, if you'd rather just build towards multiple decks rather than like a single one that are meta relevant, both the Charizard and the Mewtwo packs are going to be a good choice. Honestly, you could kind of go with either one. I'm just going to start with the Charizard one first here. So the Charizard pack, unsurprisingly, probably one of the best decks in it is Charizard EX with Moltres EX. Those two together combine to hit some of the highest numbers in the game. In fact, Charizard can one-hit KO anything in the format with 200 damage on its attack. This pack also actually contains what I would probably consider the quote-unquote most budget deck in the game, which is the Blaine deck. Which is used to power up Ninetales and Rapidash as attackers. Not only does the deck not use any EX Pokemon, the core of the deck actually doesn't even use a single 3-diamond card. So literally every card is 2 diamonds or less. So it's like absurdly easy to build. Fire cards aside, there's plenty of other good cards here. Sabrina is arguably the best supporter in the game. It allows you to switch out your opponent's Pokemon to disrupt them or sometimes even just straight out win the game. Starmie's the main attacker for what's probably considered the strongest water strategy in the game. The problem with this is that water decks kind of use cards from all 3 packs, so notably Misty and Articuno EX are not in here, so it's kind of hard to build a water deck with just going into one pack. Greninja can act as a bench support Pokemon for pretty much any deck. It can put 20 damage anywhere on the opponent's board once per turn, which can be kind of cool. The problem, of course, it's a stage 2, so it's a little harder to build up into. If you want to build a grass deck, Exeggutor EX can hit for up to 80 damage with 1 energy on your second turn. Of course, you got to flip heads on its attack. But pair it with Erica, and it can be a really annoying card to knock out. Also worth mentioning that if the very first pack you opened was the Charizard pack, you're actually guaranteed to start with 1 Exeggutor EX already, so you'd only have to actually pull one of those if you wanted to build that deck. Alakazam deals 60 damage plus 30 more for each energy attached to the opponent's Pokemon, so it can actually take some key one-hit KOs on certain attackers in the format. Primeape is worth considering for most fighting decks because it can deal 100 damage for only 2 energy as long as it's damaged. However, I would only recommend playing it if you have the promo Mankey from the Lapras EX event, which can damage itself. And then lastly, I wanted to mention Kangaskhan, just kind of as a decent tanky filler attack that can go in basically any deck. Mostly you'd use it in a deck that needs to apply a little bit of pressure while stalling in order to set up a bigger attacker on the bench. I have 2 example deck lists for this one, actually. So we're going to start off with the Charizard one, of course. This is Goof GG's 4th place list featuring Charizard EX and Moltres EX. And then the second list is Captain Kerr's 12th place Blaine deck list, which, again, just want to reiterate, has no EX Pokemon. This is, like, dirt cheap to build if you want to do that. Now, finally, we're going to go over the Mewtwo pack. So, as expected, the strongest deck you can build from here is Mewtwo. Paired with Gardevoir, it can help accelerate energy for Mewtwo's EX's Side Drive attack, which can do 150 each turn as long as you have a Gardevoir backing it up to recover the energy. I personally think Mewtwo is the second best deck in the game, really only behind Pikachu. However, one benefit of building towards Mewtwo is that, in my opinion, there's more generically good cards in this pack compared to the Pikachu one. Some other relevant cards that you're going to see in the metagame are Marowak EX. This can hit for 2 energy. You can hit up to 160. Of course, if you're feeling lucky, you got to flip those heads. Also, similar to the Exeggutor EX, if you started with the Mewtwo pack, you're already going to have 1 copy of Marowak EX, so it's going to be a little bit easier to build than some other EX-focused decks. Giovanni's another staple. It simply adds 10 damage to your attack for the turn, which can help fix some awkward math to take unexpected knockouts. Dragonite has a really sick attack. It deals 50 damage randomly 4 times on your opponent's board. Problem here is that it takes a while to build up, so it's often paired with something that can stall, like the combination of Weezing or Koga, which is used to stall out games while applying residual poison damage. You can also even stall with something like Kangaskhan that we've seen previously. Venusaur is worth mentioning as the tankiest grass Pokemon in the game, but you'll probably need Erica from the Charizard pack for it to be really worth your while. But yeah, it is. If you thought Exeggutor was annoying to kill, Venusaur is even worse. Similarly, Articuno EX is a great card, but it relies on a supporter from another pack, this one being Misty from the Pikachu pack. If you can just flip 3 heads right away, you can Blizzard on turn 1, which is extremely powerful. Gengar EX has a powerful ability. It stops the opponent from playing supporters as long as it's in the active. The problem here is it requires a lot of time to set up. It's kind of like Dragonite, where you're probably best stalling with like Weezing or Koga or Kangaskhan in the front while you're building up the Gengar. Also, with how strong Sabrina is, Pidgeot, I feel like, needs to get at least some sort of mention because its ability is just basically literally Sabrina. The problem is it's on a stage 2 Pokemon, so it's harder to justify running it, but with how powerful Sabrina is, I feel like you have to mention it at least a little bit. And Jinx is a decent secondary attacker for Psychic decks. It fills kind of a similar role to Alakazam. It's slightly less damage, but it is on a basic Pokemon, so pros and cons there. And the last deck I want to show here is just a Mewtwo deck list. This was piloted by Tilting Shiba to get 2nd place at that tournament. So, and then before I end, I just want to mention a couple generic cards here. Again, these ones can be pulled from any of the packs in Genetic Apex. None of them are really nearly as big of a pull as the previous cards, but they can all act as like a secondary attacker line in their respective decks. So, for example, Lilligant can help speed up energy in Venusaur decks. Rapidash is actually one of the main attackers in the Blaine deck. Golduck can be used as a secondary attacker in Misty decks, and actually the Psyduck is worth mentioning because its attack will block your opponents from using supporters, similar to Gengar's ability. Zebstrika can be played in Pikachu EX decks, like we actually saw in the first place deck list from the tournament. It can be used to finish off a Pokemon that the opponent is trying to hide on the bench. For example, Pikachu Mirror Match, you deal 90 to the opponent's Pikachu, they try to retreat, you just snipe it with Zebstrika. Sandslash works great as a secondary attack line in fighting decks. Marowak EX, Primeape, anything like that, Sandslash can just kind of go in any of those decks. Arbok pairs really nicely with Weezing, which thematically is cool because it can be like a Team Rocket deck. You can use Weezing to poison the Pokemon, Koga it back to your hand, and then trap them in active with Arbok, so they're taking residual poison damage. And lastly, Farfetch is a card that can basically go in any deck. It really just acts as a quick attacker that can start doing 40 damage immediately going second, which can be really helpful, especially when you're first starting to build your collection and don't have many other cards that fill a similar role. So those are kind of all the cards here that I think are really important to know about, and ones you should kind of be looking towards as you're trying to pull cards. So just to summarize my thoughts on the pack here, first, if you just want to build the best deck at this exact moment, go with Pikachu. It's tournaments have pretty much shown that it's the best one to build right now, so that'd be my personal suggestion if you just all you care about is just the best deck and nothing else. Now, if you would prefer to build towards more decent decks at once, go with either Mewtwo or Charizard. Again, honestly, it's kind of a toss-up which of those two packs are quote-unquote better. It's really mostly personal preference, I think. So the Mewtwo pack, I think it has the strongest deck of the two in Mewtwo, but the Charizard one contains, like, I guess more easier decks to build, especially if you look at that Blaine list, where, again, you don't have to pull any EX or even 3 diamond cards. So, yeah, it's a toss-up between the two, honestly. But yeah, I hope all that was helpful for people who are kind of on the fence of what pack to build. So if this helped you out at all, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a like. Also, if you think I missed any strong cards, if you think there's something that's worth mentioning that I didn't bring up, feel free to say something in the comments. There's easily a chance there's something that I could have overlooked. Also, if you want to see more Pokemon TCG Pocket content, feel free to subscribe. I'm also streaming most nights at twitch.tv/argmytoast if you want to catch me live. Right now I'm focusing mostly on TCG content, but I also dabble in other Pokemon challenges like speedruns or Kaizo Ironmon. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.